All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday Thoughts. I am Casey Kephart, and I have Jessica back with me from her long and exciting trip that she's got to take and to rest up and be refreshed for all of you in our lives. Today we are talking about gluten. Some people might think it's a fad. Some people might think it is the key to remission of autoimmune disease, i.e., me and Jessica. So, what we're going to be talking about today is just what is gluten, how does gluten affect our bodies, and how it can help you go in remission for your autoimmune disease, really. Oh, there you go. You're much lighter, Jessica.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, why am I so dark?
I got my little halo light on me too. They're
I was like, it's
lightsabers.
winter in Saskatchewan here. We don't get a lot of sun, so.
I'm wearing my yellow shirt to brighten up all of us today.
Awesome.
So I'll just introduce ourselves and then we'll get right into it. So for Jessica's group, if you haven't seen me yet, I am Casey Kephart. I am the founder of Nutrition with Casey. And the host of the Facebook group Nutrition for Women with Autoimmune Disease. I work with women with all types of autoimmune disease, not just arthritis forms like Jessica does. And I am a integrative nutritionist, and I live in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Awesome. And I am Jessica Malnick. For those of you who don't know me, I am a holistic nutritionist. I am in right now, which is cold Saskatchewan in the middle of Canada. It's cold but beautiful. And I did just get back from Mexico, so I am happy to be back. I got some sunshine and warmth while I was away, so that will help me get through this long Saskatchewan winter. So I'm glad to be here. I am also the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Facebook group. And I am the creator of the anti-arthritis method. And I help my clients with autoimmune forms of arthritis get rid of their joint pain and get it under control for the long term. So yes, we're excited to talk about gluten today. And so when Casey and I were planning this, we were thinking like, well, what the heck is gluten anyways? Because that word gets thrown around a lot. I know it has kind of been a trending topic in the last few years especially, but basically all of that gluten is, it's a protein that is found in all forms of wheat, rye, and barley. So think cereal grains, whole grains, grains used to make breads and other baked goods, pastas, beer and other grain-based alcohols, crackers, fillers in packaged food. There's lots of sneaky ways that gluten is hidden in our diets, and we're going to get there another day. Dressings, sauces, thickeners, even MSG and other food additives there's gluten in. There's even sometimes gluten in personal care products like lotions and shampoos and conditioners and makeup. So gluten can be in so many different things, and what it comes down to is it is a protein. So it's just a protein that is quite harmful. But Casey, I know you want to talk a little bit about how gluten has changed over the years.
Yeah, so like we both said, gluten has kind of been seen as a fad or something that's just come up and not very true. Um, so I tell people I'm celiac. So it's very rare to be celiac, actually. It's like 1% of the population in America, at least, is diagnosed with celiac disease, and all of the rest are non-celiac gluten sensitive. And I hear all the time, well, gluten's good for you. So why would you tell a person who doesn't have celiac disease to get off gluten, like whole wheat bread and whole wheat pastas and, the fiber that's in there? So I would go to say 50 to 100 years ago, yeah, you are exactly right. Whether you took a nutrition class or not, you're right with that. It was very healthy. It was full of nutrients and fibers. Things for to have our gut thrive and for regular bowels and things like that. Now it is just the opposite. And the reason why it's changed is because 50 to 100 years ago, they weren't spraying our crops like they are now, full of the pesticides and the GMOs and Glyphosate. Glyphosate is the probably the biggest one, and these are all gut disruptors. They're systemic inflammatories. So what our grandparents and great grandparents were eating 100 years ago is not the same wheat that we are eating now. It's hybridized, and it's not even the same form. If you look under a microscope or do the whatever they do with the lab testing of it, it is such a different product. So now it is inflammatory for, I would say, I would go to say for mostly everybody now.
Yeah, no, then there has been recent studies that show that even if you don't have celiac disease or you like are noticeably gluten sensitive, it creates leaky gut in everybody. So even people that don't have autoimmune conditions, so it could be causing problems that could be building over the long term, even if you're not aware of it. So
Mhm.
what gluten does to the body is it creates a systemic inflammation. So, like I was saying, it directly creates holes in our gut lining, and then our immune system goes awry trying to protect us from the gluten by breaking it down. So, when we have holes in our gut, and this goes back to the whole leaky gut issue, which we have talked about before, is that we're going to have undigested protein molecules, bacteria, and other toxins that are leaking through these holes in our gut lining into our body, into our bloodstream, and our immune system is going to be on high alert to work to protect us from that. So when this happens continually over time, our immune system can get really confused and an autoimmune condition can develop, or several autoimmune conditions. So if in autoimmune disease, the gluten molecules don't actually break down, and our immune system like maintains a state of hyperactivity. So we don't want that. So because autoimmunity comes when our immune system is overreactive and it's confused and it's attacking our own body's tissues. So
Yep.
I'll leave it to you, Casey, to take that a little bit further.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to unpack that a little further, like Jessica said, is gluten, when ingesting gluten, it mediates in all of us a zonulin effect or release, I should say. Zonulin basically unzips those tight junctions in your gut. Think of, again, your gut as a solid line in the road. It's now going to unzipper this solid line and make it like a dashed line in the road. That is bad. And that is exactly what happens when, what Jessica just said, with undigested bacteria and bad bacteria and food particles and everything going in and out of these dotted lines now. So gluten mediates zonulin. Zonulin unzips the gut, and then which causes a leaky gut, which then causes your autoimmune disease and the inflammation. And it can be any autoimmune disease that's in your genetics, or basically genetics that you have going for you. So it's not just gluten that does this, though. So gluten is the start of it. So when you eat gluten, your body is inflamed, and your body attaches antibodies to this gluten molecule to fight it. So every time you eat gluten, the antibody's like, oh, I remember this protein. Let's fight, 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 fight. And this is where the immune system is ramped up. But because gluten is so cross reactivity, gluten is known for cross reactivity, I should say, which means it can hide as other forms and trick the body. So, meaning gluten kind of looks like rice in the body when you ingest that, and millet and oats and dairy, especially, and corn. Yeast is another one. So when you eat these things, your body, because it already has a gluten antibody to it, it's like, oh, here's another gluten protein, even though you ate rice, and your immune system's going to ramp up again, and your body's going to feel symptoms, which we'll get into really soon. But besides of that, eating gluten and those antibodies also attacks tissues in the body. And so some of the largest tissues in the body that gluten goes after is your TPO. So thyroid peroxidase, which is your thyroid, which equates to Hashimoto's in the autoimmune form. So it attacks your thyroid. It goes for your cerebellum tissue, which is everything up here. So everything neuro. Um, and other autoimmune issues happen. So if you have obviously celiac disease, you need to stay away from gluten. MS is another big one where you'll want to eliminate that. Anything having to do with the thyroid, Hashimoto's, especially because of those TPO antibodies, arthritis and osteoarthritis, which Jessica will probably touch on, and Addison's disease are probably the biggest one. And Addison's disease is adrenal function. Jessica, do you want to interject there? I just said a whole bunch of sciencey things.
No, that was really great because I have a hard time breaking things down when it comes to the science and saying it in a brief way. So you did a really great job. One thing I was going to bring it back to is some of the symptoms that you might have when you are sensitive to gluten, which most of us are. I personally don't have celiac disease. There's an easy blood test you can have done to check if you are celiac disease or not. But I know that because I have an autoimmune condition, I am sensitive to gluten, absolutely. So like Casey was saying, and I think the whole point of this is that one of the biggest inflammatory foods or proteins that we can consume is gluten. Especially it affects people with autoimmune conditions. So it's not just symptoms that are related to our autoimmune condition. So with arthritis, it's not just joint pain. For Hashimoto's, it's not just like a lower functioning thyroid, but it's also things like skin irritations of all kinds. I know I have psoriatic arthritis, so your psoriasis can act up, eczema, acne, digestive distress, so bloating, bowel irregularity, increased joint pain, headaches. Headaches is a really common one, stomach aches, chronic fatigue, brain fog. So a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of times, and we talked about mindfulness a few weeks back, and I think just being aware of how our body feels and paying attention, because a lot of us, we're just so busy going through life, we don't really, take a step back and think, well, how am I feeling today? Like, why am I tired? Is there something I ate that's out of the ordinary? Or, why do I have a headache? So just paying attention, because it can be just a whole host of symptoms besides just an increase of symptoms for your specific autoimmune condition.
Exactly. And I would go to say too that some people don't have symptoms when eating gluten. I'll agree with that totally. If that's you, you're lucky. But that doesn't mean that gluten is not affecting you. That doesn't mean that gluten is not causing inflammation in the body. And eliminating gluten, whether you feel the effect or not, is going to help you get over that effect. The effect is going to help you get over the hump to remission. So if you're finding that you're not 100%, if you're not 90, 80, 70%, eliminate gluten. And I know we haven't mentioned this yet, and we might in a couple days in our live, but being strict with gluten is what's going to make it work, not just lollygag and, one day I don't have gluten, the other day I have a bite of gluten, a week later, I'll go off it again kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we may be talking about the severity of gluten in the symptoms, if you don't have that, that doesn't mean that you are not affected by gluten, especially if you have an autoimmune disease. If you have an autoimmune disease, if you're in my group, we have all different types of autoimmune diseases in here. If you're in Jessica's, you have a form of arthritis. It doesn't matter what you have, get off the gluten. It is going to help immensely in your immune system, in your inflammation, and your symptoms.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything to add to that, Jessica?
Yeah, I wanted to add to when we are, like if we are on medication for our autoimmune condition, sometimes, if it is working to help mitigate the pain that we have or mitigate our symptoms, it can be hard to know and to realize how gluten is affecting us. So, we might be able to eat a little bit of gluten and not have a total flare up if we're on medication and think, well, I'm fine with gluten. But in reality, it's still harming you. And it just because you might be okay now doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt you later. So just to be aware of that, Just because you're not having immediate symptoms or flare-ups doesn't mean that it's not doing harm to your body. So, and I know, Casey, you had mentioned before in another talk that we did about like how long it's actually in your system for. Did you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah. So before I forget, though, one thing that you just said about medications, check your medications also. Medications have gluten in it. They have fillers in it that contain gluten or just with the cross reactivity of the gluten things that we mentioned, like the corn, the rice, the millet, the yeast, and the dairy. So if your medications have these fillers in it, you're going to have a reaction if you have a reaction to gluten. So make sure that you're asking your pharmacist or your doctor if your medications that you're on have gluten or dairy in it. Um, and then,
And supplements too. I just wanted
oh,
to.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, we should have a live on supplements, though. There is so much to know and look out for with those that many people don't know. But I digress with that. So, what I was saying before in another live was I think I was talking about my flare or something.
Mhm.
With eating gluten, it sets you back 3 months. And I said that. And then afterwards, I had somebody ask me, what does that mean, a setback by 3 months? It doesn't mean that gluten is just like rotating in your body and not being excreted. It means that your recovery that you've done for your journey, or let's just say you've been working on your gut healing for 6 months. Let's say you eat accidentally or on purpose some gluten. That's going to set your 6 month healing journey back by 3 months.
Okay.
So all that work you did in that past 3 months is now gone because it's poking holes directly in your gut lining. There's stuff you can do to help mitigate the effect, but it's basically to help mitigate those symptoms that you're going to get. So when this happens, when you eat gluten and you have that setback, you're going to have to work extra hard to get back that progress that you just made. Double up on your supplements, get back to your healthy eating, drink a lot of water, digestive enzymes, things like that. So I hope that makes better sense from what I said before too. And I know I was going to mention in here too, just an example of my journey with gluten. I did mention I have celiac disease, so I am almost an expert on it in my body. I'm an expert on it, but also I have Hashimoto's and Lyme's disease as well, all inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. So when I eat gluten, I know it affects me, right? I have celiac disease. That's one of the main symptoms is stomach pains, bloating, and gas, but it also affects me neurologically. So with all of the inflammation going on, I have severe brain fog. I have trouble finishing my sentences and finishing my thoughts in my head and just focusing and doing normal 28-year-old things that I should be able to do on the daily basis. So even though I have celiac disease and I shouldn't eat gluten, that doesn't mean it's not affecting my Hashimoto's and my Lyme's disease too. They're all chronic inflammation diseases. So when I eat gluten, it flares up my celiac disease, but it also flares up my Hashimoto's. So your thyroid, which is the master regulator in your system, so it regulates the temperature and your energy and so many other things in your body. So when that happens, chronic fatigue can happen, mood disorders, you're hot, you're cold, your hair falling out some more. With Lyme's disease, that was basically neuro for me. So just eating some gluten can uptick a flare and can uptick all of your autoimmune diseases. So it's serious for me, but it might not be serious for you. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, just to beat a dead horse with it. That doesn't mean you're not getting inflamed with it. I want to challenge you to get off the gluten. And we're going to talk about this again too. And write down what you're feeling or not feeling. Are you getting better sleep? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Do you have more energy? Okay, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox here.
No, and that's why we're doing this is because this is a really important topic. I know it's not fun to give up gluten.
No.
We get that, absolutely. I know most of us have grown up eating bread and baked goods, and we're taught that whole grains are healthy for us and all that kind of stuff. And I know for me, it was super hard to wrap my head around changing my diet initially when I got sick. And I learned that some of these healthy foods that I was eating were really harming me. So we get it. And that's why we have programs to support our clients through this process of making the eliminations that are necessary in order to get our health back on track and to mitigate our autoimmune symptoms. So that's why we do have a really exciting upcoming challenge for you in January. So throughout the weeks in December, we're going to be unfolding some of the details and let you know kind of what to expect. And it's going to be all about gluten. So we're really excited to be able to do this with you and give you more information on this really, really important topic. So, Casey, anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so just going back to the programs that you said, anybody can read a book on gluten and go gluten free, right? Anybody can read a book on autoimmune disease and get the protocol that we're giving you too. But we're here for accountability. We're here for support. We're here for to tell you our experience and other clients' experiences that we've worked that we've worked with, and that might work for you. So it's way much more than just telling you to do something. We're here to help you get through that process because no one should do this alone. And it's a guess and check method, and we've done the guess and check method, and we know what things um, to recommend and things to take and trial and error things. So I think you're getting way more than just us telling you what to do out of this as well. And with the challenge that we have coming up in January and with our programs, nobody should go through an autoimmune disease alone and not know what they're doing. It's going to take you twice as long and it's going to be freaking horrible.
Yes, and I know you and I talked yesterday about how much of a mindset and mind shift that
Yeah.
needs to happen. And because we've done this and we've been there, and like I was doing this on my own entirely. Like I didn't know anything about autoimmune condition when I first got sick with arthritis, and I was trying to do this on my own, figure it out on my own, and I was miserable. Like I'll be completely honest, I was miserable because I didn't have the support. I didn't have a community around me that was going through the same thing. And
Reassurance.
yeah, like it's so important. It's so important to have that because and that's one of the things too we work on in this. We will be working on in this challenge, and what we do with our clients is there's a huge part of it is the mindset and support. So you
Yep.
can't get that from just a book or internet research.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a lot more coming around gluten, a lot more coming around mindset in December and January, of course. So keep listening and please let us know in the comments what specifically you're wanting to hear or what questions you have so we can answer them. And keep tuning in just to get the details on what we have in store for you in January and come along for the ride with us.
Absolutely. And yeah, we'll see you next week. We'll be back on Tuesday.
Yes,
So,
we will. All right. Everybody have a good weekend. I am off to Chicago tomorrow, so I will be having a weekend in Chicago. I'm very excited.
lovely.
All right. Goodbye.
See you guys. See you Tuesday.